And there were a lot of people who came out, and they're going to make that turkey that we made on Friday here on the show.
Yeah, thanks to everybody that came out and talking about the show and everything like that. So we truly appreciate it, the well of support in Florida, and it was great to get out of the cold for a little while. Yes. But now we're back in normal wintry conditions in November.
It's so hard to pack because you leave New York with a winter coat, you get on the airplane, you step off, it's like 80 degrees.
Yep. That's why I have tearaway pants. I wear shorts at any moment if I
really,
change
that's
climate.
an image we don't need to think about. But here's the thing. We've been here in New York City. What have we been talking about? Florida.
Yep.
Tearaway pants.
We start with the Fox News alert. The ballot chaos in Florida over as the embattled Broward County election supervisor reportedly resigns overnight, although the governor says, I haven't gotten any paperwork from her yet.
Yeah, and when does it take effect? It comes just hours after Senator Bill Nelson finally conceded to Republican Rick Scott in Florida's super tight Senate race.
Okay, well, Griff Jenkins is live in Fort Lauderdale with an update for us all. Hey, Griff.
Hey, guys. Now, we know the election results. And now we know, according to the Sun Sentinel newspaper, that Dr. Brenda Snipes, the scrutinized election supervisor there in Broward County, has resigned effective January 2nd. But what we don't know is where those ballots are. Remember, she lost 2,040 of them, along with missing some deadlines and inaccurately reporting results. I asked her yesterday about those ballots. Here's what she had to say.
I've never thought the ballots were missing. You know, that's a word we like to tie to ballots. The ballots are intermingled with the other page ones.
Not sure how they intermingle and yet are still missing. Nevertheless, we've reached out to her on her cell phone by text and phone call. Hadn't heard back. Meanwhile, the big news over the weekend, the concession. Bill Nelson, after 18 years in the Senate, conceding in a video statement to now Senator-elect Rick Scott. Guys?
All right. And Griff, just to recount, so to speak, initially, when they filed their report, Broward County, on election night, they filed it early, but then on the machine recount, they filed it 2 minutes late. And then when it came to the hand counting yesterday, were they early or late again?
They were 52 minutes early getting in their numbers to Tallahassee, but just to complicate it and show you how Broward works, the hand recount was the first set of numbers because the second set of numbers, which had the 2,000 missing ballots, was 2 minutes late, so they had to revert to the original number. Hopefully they'll straighten that out when Governor-elect Ron DeSantis appoints somebody new. By the way, former Governor Jeb Bush put Snipes in office in 2003 because the woman before her, Mary Oliphant, was the problem.
Right. And just one final question. What about the missing 2,000 ballots in that building? Are they going to look for it, or it's just like, yeah, we can't find them? It's done.
For all we know, they're in Davy Jones' locker in the ocean behind me. Guys?
Well, let's hope not. All right.
How do you lose 2,000 ballots?
Griff Jenkins live along A1A in Fort Lauderdale, right there at the beach.
Right. Well, Rick Scott was the governor. He's now the senator.
Still is.
Senator-elect. Still is. Yes, you're right. And now he is the senator-elect. He was on our show earlier, and he was talking about how frustrating the election process has been to watch. Listen.
It was very frustrating. When I announced we'd won that Tuesday night, we were up 57,000 votes, and they just kept finding ballots. And so that's why, I'm thankful for a lot of people that brought light to this to make sure we stop this. And we've got to do everything we can to make sure these elections are free and fair. We passed very historic legislation to try to make sure there wasn't any fraud, make sure people had the right to vote, but make sure we didn't have fraud. What's frustrating is these supervisor elections just didn't comply with the law.
Did not comply, and that's why perhaps she decided she was going to start spending more time with her family. Ron DeSantis, the senator, the governor.
My sense is she was spending time elsewhere doing everything.
That's what they said. She wants to spend more time with her family. That's one of the reasons she's leaving. Ron DeSantis was with us, and he said it's probably a good thing that she called it quits.
Obviously, we're going to have to address some of the problems with the election administration in places like Broward and Palm Beach County. I think it's good that Brenda Snipes has submitted her resignation. There was no way as governor that I was going to let her preside over another election down there after all the problems that they had. So we had 65 counties do a good job. We had 2 that dropped the ball. We want to make sure all 67 counties do these elections in a fair way.
I think we all want that.
Yeah, eventually, I guess Florida will get there. They have 65 who did it fair. We just got to get to 67. Here's hoping next time we got it.
Well, it's one thing to have all these problems, 1 year. but then they keep having these problems in that same area. So they got to get it right this time.
There were a dozen, I was reading this morning, there were something like a dozen different instances of problems with the Broward County elections.
It's just not fair to the voters.
Before this election. All right. Meanwhile, speaking of voters, a lot of voters went to the polls concerned about immigration. And as you remember, in the run-up to the midterms, there was that caravan that was snaking its way from Honduras.
Could last 6 months. Likewise, the U.S. is ill-prepared for the invasion and will not stand for it. They are causing crime and big problems with Mexico. Go home. Some of those clustered went in there to help out are American lawyers volunteering. They showed up there to say, hey, listen, these are your rights. This is what you can do. What they're finding out is the president's new move of pushing everyone to a port of entry is making them sign in and get in line. And it's a huge line. The hope is the word will get out that you're not getting in.
Right.
So we could do an orderly process.
Well, there are 3,000, mostly Hondurans, that are there right now. And some folks in the government are saying they're expecting it to swell up to 10,000. And our U.S. border inspectors are processing about 100 asylum claims a day. So they're anticipating that those folks are going to be in Tijuana for months. Some are saying 6 months, some are saying longer.
That is, if they are waiting for asylum. And to Brian's point, talking about the lawyers, these volunteers who are just south of the border talking to the migrants, they're telling them how exactly to effectively apply for asylum. Meanwhile, Brian was interviewing Lieutenant Colonel Alan West a little while ago.
I was busy.
And you were very
talking,
busy.
Interviewing.
No kidding. And the colonel had this observation. The reason they went from Guatemala and Honduras way out to the west coast of Mexico is because of California's sanctuary status. Listen to this.
The interesting thing is that this caravan aimed toward Tijuana because why? California is a sanctuary state for illegal immigration, and I'm sure that's where they're looking to cross into. This is one of the reasons why we need to have the military down there along the border, not to be on the front line against some of the migrants or some of the illegal immigrants, but to start building better facilities down there so that we don't have to release people into the society. We need to have them down there to backfill our United States Border Patrol agents so that we can get those resources and their capability right up front to stem this flow.
And it's a magnet.
And didn't the president say something like, it's not catch and release now, it's catch and detain?
Yeah.
And so that's the facility he's talking about. If you catch somebody, keep them right there so you don't have to release them into the population of the United States until they get their adjudication.
Shelters are full down there. Some people are now, they've opened up this city sports complex and they're letting people, the migrants, live there and sleep on the baseball fields and underneath the bleachers.
For those people who say, well, President Trump is looking to do well in the midterm election, so he's trying to make the caravan a big deal and use terms like invasion. That's what they're using in Tijuana, and that's just a fraction or a percentage of the caravan coming this way. They might all be great people. There's just a way to get into this country. Meanwhile, we've all gotten to know Dan Crenshaw over the last few weeks, ever since SNL made him...
You're saying that the president's attacking, the president's undermining. He said, no, you just have a disagreement with the policy, and that's a completely different thing.
Yeah. Meanwhile, at 12 minutes after the hour, let me tell you what's coming up next. Congressman Elijah Cummings, who's soon to be chairman, perhaps, will soon take over the House Oversight Committee. His first priority, make the special counsel findings public. Current White House Oversight Committee Chairman Trey Gowdy is live here to react. Plus,
Willie Robertson's going to join us right here on the Curvy Couch.
There he is.
Coming up next.
He's got a new book.
it's such a great message. Will take control of the House come January, and their first order of business, raise your taxes, but it's already causing some infighting among House Democrats. Our next guest says this is just a preview of some problems for presumed Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Joining us now is Senior Fellow at the National Taxpayers Union, Maddie Doppler. Maddie, first off, are they going to just make it harder to increase your taxes? Is that what we're trying to undo what the Republicans did to make it harder to increase your taxes?
Well, Brian, at the core of the debate here are the House rules. Now, normally these are just technical changes that govern how the House does business, but the majority party gets to set those rules. So House Republicans made it more difficult to raise all taxes. And the question now for Democrats is whether or not they repeal that rule or they replace it with a rule that allows them to raise taxes on wealthy earners. And I think that this really indicates one thing. When Democrats say they want to raise taxes on the rich, they don't mean it. They mean they want to raise taxes on everyone, because right now, Nancy Pelosi Pelosi is saying she has the politically salient idea to change that rule so just taxes could be raised on upper income earners. And the progressive wing of her party is saying that simply isn't enough. They want full-scale repeal of that rule so they can raise taxes on everyone.
But some of those Democrats who maybe won in Orange County, California, or in Texas, the last thing they want to do, they were in as moderates, is say go and raise taxes. So
That's exactly right.
She might have a mini Freedom Caucus issue on her hands.
I think this absolutely indicates the challenges that presumptive Speaker Pelosi has in front of her. You know, she has had years of experience making Democrats walk the plank on politically toxic votes. But when it comes to tax increases, Democrats typically have really decided to campaign on raising taxes rather than voting to actually raise taxes. Now, for months, Pelosi has been unequivocal. She says she wants to repeal the tax cuts that were passed into law last year. What this indicates, though, moving forward is that progressive Democrats in that party now really want to hold her feet to the fire and force her to make good on that promise. That's going to create problems for Democrats who typically talk a big game on taxes but are refusing to follow them up with real votes.
What's kind of interesting is we saw that big announcement last week about a crime bill that could be taken up in the lame duck session. There's pressure to do it. So I said to myself, could we have a year in which they try to do some things together and then in 2019 separate because they have to go win in 2020? Are you saying that it's going to be, do your sources say friction right away? Nothing on immigration?
Brian, I think that the next few weeks are crucial. They will indicate whether or not Democrats are actually willing to govern. We've got a couple big fights coming ahead of us. The House rules are just one of them, but of course a big funding fight with funding expiring at the first week in December. If Democrats decide to actually put ideas forward to allow for this country to move forward, you know, maybe there will be opportunity for compromise. There certainly are opportunities for that, but Democrats are the ones who hold the keys and they need to indicate they're serious about that.
The president said I might shut down the government if I don't get the wall. A lot of his problems with Republicans. I mean, it's Mitch McConnell's the one who's not really into the wall.
You know, Republicans typically have had a lot of leverage in these spending fights, so they need to work together in order to accomplish the prerogatives that Americans want them to, that sent them to Congress to accomplish. You know, there's a lot of space left in the year for them to have those negotiations, but I really think it's important for Republicans to unite on their priorities to force Democrats to really start to take a hard look at what they're going to do when they take control of the chamber next year.
Absolutely. Maddie, thanks so much. Great insight.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, coming up straight ahead, we have South Carolina Congressman. He's going to be retiring soon, Trey Gowdy. What's he doing next? And what's he here for? I cannot wait to tell you. And one school is battling bullying by banning designer coats. Willie Robertson joins us on the couch to talk about coats, liners, gum, entrepreneurs, duck calls. That's his book, and that's Willie. Hello.
Hey.
That's my greeting. Hello.
Good morning and welcome back. We have a Fox News alert.
Your business instinct and with the entrepreneur spirit within us. But what do you do when the person next to you is richer than you and has nicer clothes than you, Willie? Do you make them dress down?
No, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard of. I mean, we grew up really poor.
Right.
So it gave us something to push for. That's why I started my businesses early, selling my gum and singing. And I was trying to make money. I was trying to, trying to make some money so I could buy. For me, it was tennis shoes. It wasn't fancy coats.
So you don't even understand the mindset of stop making kids feel bad because they don't have money.
When does that stop? Like, everything has a price tag. So if you want to, if you don't want to wear the nice fancy coat, wear something less. Although we always had down coats. We had Uncle Si's old army jackets. He would give them to us, so it had our name on it and had the goose feather. Yeah, I mean.
Well, these coats, I mean, some of them are $1,000. Do you think kids should have that kind of thing? I mean, remember when we were growing up, the expensive jeans were like $50, and now they're $300, and every kid has them.
They are?
We didn't have, we didn't grow up that way, so. We had, my mom wouldn't even buy me the nice parachute pants.
Well,
I had like the cheap version that looked like a garbage bag, and the zippers didn't work, and.
Yeah, well, so you come from, very modest means, and before you had the bubble gum, because famously your dad, we know, came up with the duck call, and that changed everybody's lives. But when you were 5, you were trading and selling all sorts of stuff. You say in 5th grade, I was constantly selling and trading stuff. We were so poor, I didn't have an allowance. I needed cash. I had a pretty productive worm farm, and I sold bait worms.
Were you ever in the worm business?
Not really.
It's a real good business, but it's labor intensive, and it takes forever to check out because you have to. Each worm has to be grabbed. Right. So selling the bubble gum, I ended up with this case of bubble gum, and selling that for 50 cents a piece was a way better business. And And I was rolling. I was making hundreds of dollars, and the principal shut me down.
Wow. And also, you also were human jukebox on the bus, right?
I was, yeah. You stuck a quarter in, I mechanically dropped it in, and I would get up and sing.
Let's see what that's like. Let's see, like,
boom. Oh, well, boom, 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 boom. Standing in the rain with his head hung low. Couldn't get a ticket. It was a sold-out show. That's
good. That's great.
Good job.
Jukebox hero.
give him a quarter.
Right. I wish I had change.
All right, so Willie, tell us about your book. Why'd you write it? American Entrepreneur.
Well, coming from those stories and learning about how people do business, like our odd business of duck calls, wanted to collect really all the stories, or a lot of the stories in America about people who did these great things, with business, and look at their backgrounds. And it was interesting to me. Some were rich, some were poor, and so we go all the way back to when America started, bring it all the way up to now, and a lot of them made mistakes, and so you keep going. So I'm hoping people, not that it's just interesting, but I hope people are inspired and say, hey, I need to jump in there and do what I've always wanted to do. That's probably the most questions I've been asked since Duck Dynasty. I'm starting this business. How did y'all do it?
But the key is there are so many people out there watching right now. They've got a great idea, but somehow it doesn't translate into working.
And the main trait that they had was they were hard workers and had a great work ethic. And so I run into a lot of people today, they want it now, and they're like, just like our business, they're like, well, how was it to be an overnight success? And I'm like, well, Dad started in 1972. It took about 40 years. It wasn't, so there was a lot of contentment there. We had to be patient and keep working. And
what was the big break for you?
Well, it just kept going. Yeah, it was actually when we got in Walmart stores. Because we put our phone number on the back of it, it shipped all over the country, and people started calling us for more products.
Wow!
So it was like that was our whole marketing, and that we started getting calls from when I was 10 years old. We'd answer the phone, Duck Commander.
Right.
And we would take the orders, we'd write them down, but really that spread us out across the nation.
So this could be inspirational for a lot of people, and don't get so caught up in the end game. You just got to find out. You got to stick with it, have an idea, follow it through, and understand there's a lot of successful people. The first idea didn't necessarily hit. Sometimes you got to keep on reinventing yourself.
A lot of times they didn't hit. I mean, these guys they went bankrupt, and of course, someone went to debtor's prison. Thank goodness that's not there. If you made a mistake, you went to jail. So bad business move, you went to jail. But we chronicle all those things. Some of the stories are just incredible. Frederick Tudor selling ice. He shipped ice from Boston to India. And it stayed ice. Isn't that amazing? Every time I think about that, just how big that is, and how they got loans, and how they just kept going, and even at older ages, they came in their 50s and 60s and 70s some, and started these great businesses.
Read all about it. American Entrepreneur. Willie Robinson, excellent.
Thank
great
you.
to see you.
So he's got a good idea, and we'll talk to you on radio in a little while.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Congressman Elijah Cummings will soon take over the House Oversight Committee. His first priority, make the special counsel's findings public. Current House Oversight Chair Trey Gowdy is here to react to that. Coming up next.
And from head of the State Department to head coach of the Cleveland Browns, perhaps? Condoleezza Rice responds. January, will they be able to work out America's problems? Let's bring in Republican Congressman currently, Trey Gowdy. He's the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, member of the Judiciary Committee on the House as well.
From the great state of South Carolina.
Yeah, that's right, and he will be retiring. Congressman, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are y'all?
We're doing okay. What do you make of the news that Congressman Elijah Cummings of the great state of Maryland, who is expected to chair what you're doing right now, the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee, he has suggested that when Mueller's findings come out, they don't necessarily have to become public. However, he would do everything he could to make sure that does happen. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't know what he means by everything. Does that mean divulge classified information? Does it mean divulge grand jury material? I hope not. I also find it ironic. I spent 2 years battling with Elijah, who wanted to keep lots of things secret. And I spent 2 years battling with Adam Schiff, who didn't want anyone to know about the dossier or Fusion GPS or the FISA process. So if they have this newfound embrace of transparency, that's good, but it would be newfound.
How do you feel about Mark Whitaker, acting director? Are you Matt Whitaker? Do you feel okay with that? Do you feel that that's constitutional? Because most Democrats have a huge problem with it.
It's an open legal question. There are good arguments on both sides, but he is the acting attorney general up to and including the time the Supreme Court says otherwise. I'm a lot more interested in who the next real attorney general is going to be and whether that woman and man can do the very difficult task of advancing the president's policy and legislative initiatives while working for a blindfolded woman and having the independence necessary to run our nation's largest law enforcement agency.
All right. Well, in other news, House Republicans are saying they're going to subpoena James Comey and Loretta Lynch. And Comey tweeted this out. He said, House Republicans can ask me anything they want, but I want the American people to watch. So let's have a public hearing. Truth is best served by transparency. Let me know when is convenient. Your thoughts?
Jim Comey really said truth is best served by transparency. Did he interview Hillary Clinton in public? Did he interview George Papadopoulos in public? Did he interview Michael Flynn in public? Did he interview Uma Abedin, Cheryl Mills? Has the FBI ever conducted an interview in public? And has the FBI ever conducted an interview where you were limited to 5 minutes, which is what happens in congressional hearings? Ainsley, the last time I saw Jim Comey in a public congressional hearing, almost 100 times he said, I can't answer in this setting. So why in the world would he want to go back to a setting where he knows he can't answer all the questions? I'm sure he only wants me to have 5 minutes. I'm sure of that. Yeah. But I need more than 5 minutes. I have 37 pages of questions for Rod Rosenstein. So imagine how many questions I have for Jim Comey, and I can't do it in 5 minutes.
Mr. Gowdy, why wasn't James Comey subpoenaed earlier? Because now it looks like just waiting for the Democrats to take over. And how supportive has Kevin McCarthy been of the whole process?
Kevin McCarthy?
Kevin McCarthy.
Oh, fantastically supportive. I mean, Chairman Goodlatte is the chairman of Judiciary. Yes. Kevin McCarthy has been fantastic. So has Paul Ryan. In fact, Paul has rolled up his sleeves and gotten involved with the Department of Justice when they've tried to prevent us from getting information. The natural chronology of investigations is you interview everyone up to a certain point, and then you save the Jim Comeys and the Loretta Lynches and the Sally Yates for the end. That's how you naturally work investigations. Well, we're at the end. We're at the end because the Democrats aren't going to do anything in 2019. And quite frankly, we're also at the end. We've interviewed a lot of witnesses between House Intel and Judiciary, and it's time to bring in Comey and Lynch, but it is not time to do it in a carnival freak show atmosphere where my colleagues, some of whom can't question them their way out of a one-story parking garage. I mean, I got colleagues that just aren't good at asking questions. So why would we do that setting where Comey's going to say he can't answer, and all we get is 5 minutes? I mean, the FBI doesn't do that, so why should Congress do it?
And just real quick, so what's going to happen? Is he coming in? You doing this in a lame duck session?
Oh, he's coming, whether he wants to or not. And Bob Goodlatte's going to set the terms, not Jim Comey.
Okay.
I got his tweet. He wants to do it in public. He wants to sell more books. He wants to be more famous. But Congress is going to decide how we can best advance the fact-finding and the truth, and that is not in 5-minute increments, and it is not in a setting where he can answer, I can't answer in this setting like he's done almost 100 times.
All right. And Congressman, tell us about, I know you are a co-sponsor of a bill to posthumously award the Congressional Gold Medal to the Benghazi heroes, the 4 men who died that day on September the 11th, a couple of years ago. Chris Stevens, Sean Smith, Glenn Doherty, and Tyrone Woods. Why is this important to you now?
Well, everything you and I have discussed this morning, reasonable minds can differ, and they do differ. But on the heroism and the patriotism and the service and the sacrifice of those 4 men, Congress is unified. We can debate the decisions made in Washington on September 11th and 12th of 2012, but the actions taken in Libya were heroic, and they deserve to be recognized with Congress's highest award, and that's bipartisan and it's apolitical, which is why you have Elijah Cummings and I agreeing in full force that these 4 men ought to be recognized by our country.
So it definitely will happen.
I hope so. There's no reason for it not to. I don't know of anyone opposed to it. We just need to make it a priority.
Now, Trey Gowdy, I understand you're going to be unemployed soon on your own. You're going to be retired. So would you accept the Attorney General's job if the president asked? Would you interview it if he calls you? If he calls you?
Those are two separate questions. I would love to talk to the president about the qualities I think are important in the next attorney general. I'm really excited about what I'm going to do next, and it's in South Carolina. But I would love the chance to advocate for someone like a John Ratcliffe or like a Susan Brooks or someone who can do that very difficult task of advancing the president's legislative initiatives while maintaining the independence of the Department of Justice. I mean, respect for the rule of law is the foundation of our country, and we need a Department of Justice that is both respected and worthy of respect, and it needs to be depoliticized, and there are certain people that can do it. I've actually never met or talked to the president. I would love for that to change. On the issue of who best to represent that department, I don't think it's me, but I would love to weigh in on who I think it could be.
Okay, Dick Cheney said the same thing. He ended up vice president.
I don't think it'll happen twice. He can do better than me. He can do better than me, and I'm really excited about the folks I'm going to be working for come January.
All right, Trey Gowdy, who has never met the president, and now he's got a whole new chapter ahead of him. Congressman, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right, let's hand it over to Jillian, who has some more headlines for us. Hey, Jillian.
That's right. Good morning. And a story we're following in some insane video. So there's a race car driver who loses control, flying through the air, and then slams, shutting down reports her beloved Cleveland Browns want her to coach. The former Secretary of State writing on Facebook, quote, "I love my Browns, and I know they will hire an experienced coach to take us to the next level." And, quote, "I do hope that the NFL will start to bring women into the coaching profession." Rice also saying she'd like to call a play or two next season. The Browns say she is not in the running for the job.
Why not bring in Kissinger for an interview? I mean, he was a very good Secretary of State. Why not? What the heck is going on?
All right, Jillian, thank you.
Yep.
All right, thanks, Jillian. I owe you a favor. Straight ahead, the pictures are startling. Before the wildfires in California heavily damaged Malibu, and after, we are live on the
missing in California's raging wildfires.
Well, you take a look at this. It's a satellite image of Malibu before the fires, and now, check it out, after the fires, showing the catastrophic damage.
Jonathan Hunt is live in Malibu with a closer look at the devastation. And as the sun comes up out there in the west, Jonathan, it becomes visible and crystal clear that it is just a disaster.
Yeah, Stephen Bryan, and those images you were just looking at are amazing when you look at it before the fires hit and after. But let's start with the campfire up north. The grim search for bodies still continuing there, and it is now a race against time. Obviously, everything was reduced to just piles of ash, so finding remnants of human remains is very difficult indeed, and it will only become more difficult this week if the predicted rains come down. That's why rescuers are working so hard up there to identify as many of the dead as they can, as quickly as they can. Also, near Paradise, California, the town that was destroyed, there was a vigil last night. A lot of survivors showing up just because they wanted to be in the presence of others who'd gone through what they've been through. Listen here.
Just know that God's comforting us. It's hard to imagine, and we're living it. It's really, and then I look around at all the kindness.
My wife she needs some closure. To be around other people that have gone through the same thing that we have, it helps with the grieving process.
And here in Malibu, residents are now being allowed back in, and many of them finding there's pretty much nothing to come home to. Stephen Bryan?
Awful images. All right, Jonathan, thank you very much, live from Malibu.
Yeah, they say one of the challenges is it's going to rain, which is great, but it's raining so hard, so quick, makes it harder.
Mudslides. All right, meanwhile, the last time he was on Fox and Friends, this little boy made an emotional appeal to our viewers and to President Trump. He needed help getting his father the kidney transplant he desperately needed. Well, both of them are back with a big update you're going to hear next.
Wow, but first let's check in with Bill Hemmer for what's coming up at the top of the hour.
On a Monday, good morning. The number of missing in California is just staggering. The latest from there, yeah, indeed it is, and another week to try and work through that in Northern California. So we'll get on that story. Also, Kellyanne Conway live from the White House. There's a ton to talk about already this week, and we have a winner in Florida, how that outcome could affect the next few years in Washington. Big Monday coming up 10 minutes away. Come join us, 9 to noon. We'll see you then.
This program is brought to you by the AccuCheck Guide Simple Pay program. Make it simple to save on your diabetes test strips at simplepaysaves.com.
My dad has been sick for a long time. He has to get a kidney to live. My dad says you do a lot of stuff for our country. My dad and my grandma, please help. That's all I want for Christmas. Maybe one toy. Please get my dad a kidney.
Well, this Thanksgiving week, we are taking a look back at the great causes Fox and Friends viewers have supported this past year. Back in March, Ainsley spoke with then 8-year-old For Putnam, who was determined to get his father the kidney transplant that he desperately needed. For and his father, Trey, join us right now with an update. Good morning to you guys. Thanks very much for joining us today from Charlotte.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Okay. So, For, you read that letter to the president coming up last year. And now we've got an update, don't we, Trey? Tell us about what you've been through over the last couple of months.
Well, I was still sick for a while, but last month I got a kidney. So I've been feeling better every day since.
Amazing. And, of course, For, you wrote that letter, and the President of the United States responded. Do you remember the day the President's letter came to your house?
Yes.
Tell me about it.
When I first got the letter, my grandma called us over and she said that you got a letter from the president, Trump, and I thought she was joking.
Well, yeah, of course. Part of the letter reads this from the president. I can tell you are a brave young man with a big heart. I admire your determination to make sure your dad has the support and resources he needs to feel better. I hope you know how much joy and encouragement you already bring him. Mrs. Trump and I will keep you and your dad in our thoughts and prayers. All right, so Trey, you have now had the kidney transplant. This in part thanks to the generosity of Fox and Friends viewers, because I know there was a GoFundMe page set up. The goal was $50,000. As of yesterday, it was at $48,000. I know you wanted to say thanks today, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, we couldn't have done this without the support of the American public and Fox and Friends watchers.
Yeah, but Trey, what about your son as well? Just the fact that that boy wanted
saved
his
my
dad.
life.
He did. He saved your life.
It's a pretty awesome feeling. I mean, you think about the parent saving the kid, but you don't hear many kids saving their parents. So, but that's what he did. He saved me.
Well, he did. And For, how do you feel? I mean, your dad had the kidney transplant. He's getting better every day.
I'm happy because he'll be able to go outside, like I said, play football, and
that's what it's about, being able to play with your dad out in the yard. That's great. All right, once again, you're really close to your ultimate goal. I know close to 1,000 people donated over the last 7 months. If viewers would like to give back, go to foxandfriends.com and there will be a link to the GoFundMe page. Fellas, thank you very much. Trey, we are so delighted that you're doing better. God bless you.
Appreciate it. God bless you.
And For, good letter. See you soon. All right, we'll be right back.